So here is a technique for taking a handprint of a small child, so a child under the age of around about 2. Young children do find it quite hard to keep their hands open whilst you're painting their hand. So this technique is quite useful. What you need to do is take your piece of plastic, and what we're going to do is we're going to paint the glaze, the coloured glaze, onto the plastic rather than onto the child's hand. So give the bottle a little shake, and using your paintbrush you're going to spread the glaze out onto the piece of plastic. So do a nice large square of it, so a square that's larger than the child's hand, nice and thick but as evenly as you can get it. Okay, then you're going to take your child's hand. Now Elsie is 10, so it's a lot easier to take her handprint, but what you'll find with a young child is they may well be gripping their hands together like this, so you might need to give them a little bit of help to open up their hands. So what I would do is hold their wrist, take their fingers like this and put your thumb on the back of their hands like this and sort of peel their hand open and onto the plastic. And if you hold your hand a little bit like I'm holding it, so I've still got my hand, one hand around her wrist, one thumb on the back of her hand, and then my left hand is kind of holding her fingers into position. What I'm trying to do with my fingers is place them over this part of her fingers, because often that's the little bit that doesn't get printed. So if you can hold it there, that's great. So hold the wrist quite firmly, hold the front of the hand. Now your child might be able to keep their hand quite still here, so you can maybe take your hand off and hold on to the bit of plastic, or you might need to keep your hand on top of their hand and you might need a second person to hold the plastic still. So it does tend to move around when you're doing this. I would recommend an extra person helping you out with this. So what you're going to do with your child's hand is you're going to sort of do a sort of a swish round, making sure you've got lots of glaze on the back of their hand. If you've got somebody else holding this, you can really go for this. So you can go round and round. Give their fingers individually a little bit of a sort of a wish round into the glaze, just to make sure that the fingertips and all the underside of each finger are covered. When you're happy that you've got enough glaze on there, you can then lift the plastic and your child's hand onto the pottery into the position that you want to take your print. Okay, so this is where you might need a second person to help you out here. If I was doing this with a little one, Becky would be the other person. I would hold her hand, or the child's hand, like this, still with my hand around her wrist, thumb on the back of the hand, and then using my left hand to hold her hand still, and Becky would pull the plastic away, but I'm going to have a go at doing that. So slowly pulling that away, okay, get rid of that, and then you put your hand back on here, lift the elbow, pushing the palm of the hands down. Again, if your child is quite happy to keep their hands still, you can take your hand off and you can push each finger down individually, so making sure that you're pushing this part of the hand as well as all the way up to the tips of the fingers. Okay, if you think they're going to start wiggling their hand if you take your hand off, then just give it a good push down and then lift it off nice and straight. And there you go, you've got your handprint on there. If you do get a little smudge on there, don't worry, because back in the studio, Becky and I can clean that off for you. Sometimes as well, you can do a little practice first. If you want to have a go at that and print it onto some paper first, that's fine, just to sort of get your technique right. And then when you feel happy, you can do it straight onto the plate or whatever it is. I hope that helps.